freaking first cut. Golly.
Welcome to the First Cut Podcast. I'm Rick Gehman, and this is your DFS preview for this week's Sony Open, the very first full field event of 2023. Joining me to break it all down, Nejad is here. Hello.
Hello, and listen, I didn't get to watch a ton of golf yesterday, but I do want to extend a congratulations to Colin Morikawa for taking down the Century Tournament of Champions.
That's right. You did not watch much golf yesterday, but yes, I'm sure he'll enjoy that. Congratulations. We'll send that directly to him. Friend of the pod.
You're welcome.
Greg DuCharme is here. Gregors, hello, sir.
Good evening, gentlemen. That was something else. Yeah, and I'm excited for this week as well. But see, I know we were talking earlier in the week about it, and it was such a sure thing. It was just, I'm still not over it. So
real quick, Rick, he was minus 500 Saturday night, and we were talking on the round 3 recap with Mark and Greg, and I wasn't sure we would see a minus 500 the rest of the way. And I understand, people have like 5 or 6 or 7 shot leads, but this was an easy course. There weren't many pitfalls, and it's Colin Morikawa at the top of that. So do you think we're going to see minus 500 heading into day 4, the next 33 weeks?
Yeah, because I think books are like, it's not a lock. If you want to lay 500 to win 100, have at it, young man. I do think it's interesting what you said, because I do think it is a bit course dependent, at least if you're trying to be on the other side of that. You know, we saw at Albany, you can make big numbers coming in.
Yes, and birdies.
So that is the perfect course for a quote unquote meltdown or a chase down or whatever you want to call it. This one was very surprising considering there is no trouble out there. And I think he bogeyed Colin, that is 14, 15, 16, which were 14 and 15 were like the 2 easiest holes on the golf course.
Yeah, and he had a wedge into 16. Devastating.
Fun. Let's start with a little trivia. How many years has the Sony Open been in existence?
Wow. It's long.
Okay.
I'm going to say 73 years.
Whoa, that long?
What do you think, Sam?
I was just going to go ahead and take the under on that. How about that?
Okay. That's fine. Why do they have this logo? Troy, can you give me the sticks here? Share my screen. What does that say?
25th.
It says 25th anniversary. But this event, Greg is basically right, has been around since 1965. So how is this the 25th anniversary? Any guesses? I know the answer.
Well, it's got to be the 25th anniversary since Sony became sponsor?
Greg, you're a professional. Yes. You are kidding me, right? We are celebrating the anniversary of a sponsor in the official logo of the tournament. This has the history. The Hawaiian Open has been played at Waialae since 1965. There is so much history in this event. And the official logo of this event says the 25th anniversary for an electronics company. I'm actually insulted by I'm insulted by this.
You're very upset.
Preach, Rick. Preach.
Am I wrong?
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
I'm in the I don't care camp, but I see your point.
Yeah,
I get it.
Anyway,
the thing is that Rick loves the logo.
Yes,
the official logo, the trophy. These things they're a big deal to him.
They matter.
So I get where you're coming from.
Thank you. Well, I'll try to, pull back my frustration and focus on the 2023 edition of the Sony Open, the Hawaiian Open. I'm just going to call it the Hawaiian Open the rest of the way. We're at Waialae, and Sia, we mentioned this. Plenty of history. We see this place all the time. Sorry, Troy, you're gonna have to share my screen again. My bad. I misclicked on that. This is my website, rickrungood.com. This is the course key stats model. The contrast of from what we saw in Maui last week to what we are going to get in Honolulu this week is like night and day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, you're certainly not going to see the length that we saw last week, even though it didn't really play quite as long. But from an approach standpoint, I mean, I'm sure you guys will agree that the wedge game is going to be paramount here. And for me, I'm just going to be looking a lot at that and approach in general and putting, to be honest with you. But I do think there's similarities too. I mean, there's certain things that aren't really going to be in play, like around the green. I think we emphasized length maybe a little bit last week, but length's not going to, but it wasn't a huge deal. I don't think length is going to be a huge deal here either. I'm looking for guys that are going to be accurate off the tee for the most part, hot on approach and hot with the putter.
Par 70, Greg, 7,044 yards on the official scorecard. The rough, notably a little longer than years past, but only 3 inches still. So how are we best attacking this golf course?
Well, 3 inches of Bermuda is not really light. It's not, it depends a little bit on the thickness, but that's significant. When you get an entire golf ball that's going to bury when you got 3 inches of Bermuda. So again, definitely a tighter golf course than we saw last week. Sometimes that can help guys. I don't think there's a big correlation to hitting fairways, but I do think you have to keep it in play. So I do like guys who can drive the ball pretty well. I like solid ball strikers, but not necessarily distance guys, just like Sia said. Now, I think of a Matt Kuchar who's had success here. And some of the other players, even last year, like a Russell Henley, who I know gave up a 5-shot lead here last year to Hideki, is another really good example. Lucas Glover is a really good example of guys who have Webb Simpson. They're not necessarily long, but they are high quality ball strikers. And I think that's the kind of player that we're looking for this week.
The large undulating greens that we saw in Maui, not so much here, Sia. In fact, statistically speaking, from I think it's 8 feet and in, these are some of the easiest greens to putt on. They're very flat, they're very straight, or at least they're easy to read. This is the $1 million question. Does that help the bad putters or make the good putters even better?
I think it helps the bad putters. And we talked about this a little bit on the round 2 recap, or maybe it was the round 3 recap with Mark Immelman as well. I think he would agree with that, but I certainly would like his answer there too. But we see Lucas Glover at the top of this chart. Now, granted, it's only 4 rounds, but talk about bad putters. I mean, he actually did really well. He was kind of one of my sneaky plays in the 7K range, by the way, spoiler alert, but he had a really good ball striking 4 rounds last year. And the putter, he was actually like a slight gainer with the putter. And so to me, that's just like one very small illustration of how Team No Putt can actually succeed on these greens.
Yeah, the evidence, Greg, is that when you sort by strokes gained total and you just look at some of the putting performances.
Yeah.
Lucas Glover's a positive putter here. Corey Connors is a positive putter here. Brendan Steele is a positive putter here. Hideki Matsuyama is a positive putter here.
Yeah.
The evidence that it helps the bad putter seems to be mounting.
Yeah, it's strong. I don't think it's a debatable question at all. Whenever you get flatter greens, whenever it's a little bit easier on the greens, it benefits the poor putter. It benefits the better ball striker. Now, that being said, I mean, Kevin Na has won here. Which is interesting. He is not really a Team No Putt kind of guy, kind of an opposite style player, but he had a really good ball striking week. So I do think there are a lot of different ways to get it done. I think this golf course opens it up to a lot of different style of player, really a lot. And I think your chart here, your correlation shows that. Yeah. Where look, I know putting has the smallest number next to it, but there's not really one that stands out over the rest.
Yeah, lots of different ways to get there, and a lot of these stats kind of just in the middle. Nothing really too noteworthy. All right, let's start naming names. We are going to go through this field, starting at the 10K range all the way down to the 6s, and there's a lot of them. But first, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our partners. And we're back. $10,000 range. 4 of them. Tom Kim Mania is here. 10,500. Sung J M 10-3. Hideki Matsuyama, our defending champion, 10-1. And Jordan Spieth, $10,000 flat. Sia, we'll start with you. Let's break down the 10K range, and I think we're gonna have to spend some oxygen on Tom Kim.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's going to be an extremely popular play. I mean, we know pricing's pretty soft this week, so it's very easy to put Tom Kim in your lineup. Frankly, if you want to, because there are some names in the 6K and low 7K range. If you want to put Tom Kim and Sung J M in your lineup, you can do that too, or whatever, Tom Kim and somebody else in the 10 or high 9K range. Yeah, what's to say about Tom Kim? Obviously, okay, here's the thing. Tom Kim's a pretty good course fit everywhere in spite of his lack of distance. He just makes up for it with just his elite game everywhere. But we don't need distance here. So to the extent he has a weakness, it's mitigated here, obviously. And then the putter, we know he can get red hot, and we know he can be kind of, so-so with the putter. There's really no reason not to like him. But because this is a DFS show, I mean, you should be warned to the obvious, which is a lot of people are that's going to be their first click. So if you listen, Tom Kim has so much win equity in this tournament. In my opinion, Rick, I don't know what your charts say at Rick Run Good, but if you think he's going to win, you play Tom Kim, whether you think he's chalk or not. That's how I see it. But I think there's an argument to fade him this week because so many people will want to play him.
Tom Kim, $10,500, most expensive he's ever been by $800 already in his young career. Greg, before we jump into the real analysis, did you notice that his headshot is already updated to his new Nike headshot?
Yes.
Come on.
Quickly.
Where else are you going to get this kind of headshot update?
It's impressive, Rick.
Thank you.
It's nothing shy of impressive. And I mean, would you expect anything? The guy's 20 years old, and he's on the top of he is the highest priced player in the field.
Yeah. He's the favorite.
He's the favorite. It's somewhat surprising to me. At the same time, it's not. Like when I look at this field list and I see that Tom Kim is playing, my first thought is, oh, this is a great fit. This is a perfect course for Tom Kim. You hear him mentioning after the round in his interview, some people, I'm looking forward to next week. Some people have said it should be a good course for me. And so he knows it. We know it. Everybody knows this is a great golf course for Tom Kim. So I have no problem with playing him. I love him, but it worries me that Sia thinks he's going to be extremely popular. So I'm a little concerned about that because I don't like him that much more than Sung J M.
Okay,
I might like Sung J M more.
Hang on to that thought for a second. Tom Kim 11-1, the favorite to win this, number one approach player in this field over the last 36, second best player overall in terms of strokes gained. We'll get to that guy in just a second. Greg, you gave me a segue. I'll bounce it right back to you here. Sung J M, generally second in most places in terms of the betting board. He's $10,300. It's a $200 discount, but it is probably a significant ownership discount,
which is a big deal. And I love the ownership discount. And I'm not sure. You could make an argument quite easily that he should be favored over Tom Kim. And that wouldn't surprise me at all. What he's done off the tee is elite. He's extremely accurate. He's got more distance than Tom Kim. Not that that's a huge factor here, but he's also been quite good with the putter. I mean, he had a mild week in Kapalua, but you're talking about the 7 events before that he gained strokes putting, which I think is huge. And coming in here this week, now you get on some easier greens, and I think that putter can absolutely light up. So this is a perfect fit for Sung J M, and I have a feeling this could be his.
If not Tom Kim, Sia, where else would you or could you go?
It would be Tom Kim for me. It would be Sung J M. I don't think. Listen, I guess it comes down to ownership. I don't think I'm playing Hideki, even though the history here is very, very good. I'm just not. Hideki was okay last week. I'm just still not 100% convinced he has it figured out. I think Jordan Spieth is an interesting play. especially if his ownership, because the way this is going to go is it's going to go Tom Kim from an ownership standpoint, Sungjae Im, Jordan Spieth, and Hideki Matsuyama. And if Spieth is like that much lower than Sungjae and Tom Kim, then you can absolutely justify playing him. But for me, it's either skip this range or grab Tom Kim or Sungjae Im, or grab both Tom Kim and Sungjae Im and figure it out from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, Greg, because we talked about Hideki and Jordan Spieth last week kind of being the wild cards, the X factors, the unknowns. They played, I think it was T21, T13. We saw some good, we saw some bad. Now I still feel the same way about them, but they're like $2,000 more expensive.
Yes. I feel with Hideki, we had some questions answered. Just look at Hideki Matsuyama's form page. I mean, this is backwards land. Where
it's weird.
What world are we living in? I mean, it's like there's a glitch.
What Greg's referring to is that Hideki Matsuyama off the tee has lost in 7, 8, 9, 10 of his last 11 off the tee. And he's been a loser, and sometimes in big weeks on approach dating back to basically July. But he's putting so well now. He's gained strokes putting in 6 straight, which I think is the longest streak of his career.
You got to be kidding me. So I don't know what world we're living in with him. Now, you could make an argument that when you look at your regression model, putting's the most important. Maybe this is a good thing. And last year he was 25th in the field in strokes gained approach and won.
Yeah.
So maybe there's something there. I'll tell you what, though, I don't like leaning on this at all. And this, to me, it reeks of injury, a nagging stiffness somewhere, a neck injury, or which he's dealt with before, a wrist injury, something that just doesn't feel right for him. Because I've never seen this kind of slump out of Hideki Matsuyama tee to green. So that's definitely has me concerned. And I don't feel that way with Spieth. Spieth, I feel like everything last week was much calmer. We're in a place where we don't really know what we're going to get, but I would not be surprised if he starts turning on the gas here really soon. I like what I saw from Spieth last week.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested in Spieth a little bit too. Hasn't played here since 2019. Missed the cut that year, but that feels like might as well be a decade ago. The $9,000 range. A lot more interesting names. A lot of guys that we can chat through here. Tom Hoge, fresh off his 3rd place finish at the Tournament of Champions, is 9,900. Russell Henley, 98. He obviously lost in that playoff to Hideki Matsuyama last year. Brian Harman, 97. Corey Connors, 96. Then the bottom of this range is Billy Horschel, Keegan Bradley, Matt McNeely, and Taylor Montgomery. So see ya. Oh, the 9s. Oh, I like the 9s.
Yeah, this is a really good range in my opinion. And I think it's a really good, again, I think I'm team 9K. Like, I think this is a really interesting tournament to maybe start some of your lineups in the 9K range, knowing that, and let's remember about Tom Kim. Like, it's not just that people want to play him because he's so good and this is a great course fit. People want to cheer for Tom Kim, and that factors into ownership quite a bit. Tom Kim is like the new kid on the block that everybody loves for good reason, and it's not just because he's great at golf. It's because he's very easy to root for. So, again, if you start your lineup in the 9K range, if you have the guts to do that, I think it could pay off, especially in tournaments. I like Tom Hoge here. I will point out, like, everything, so he seems to check every box. I think he's kind of on autopilot, especially from approach. Wedge game is certainly there. With that said, he can be erratic. We know that just from a career standpoint. He's been erratic here as well with 3 out of 5 missed cuts, but a 12th and a 3rd. I think Hoagie's fine. He'll probably get some ownership because people are, on the Hoagie train at this point. Another guy that should be popular and is a great course fit, Brian Harman. I think the upside in this particular tournament is probably there for Brian Harman, and that's not a phrase I usually associate with him. The only other 2 guys for me to bring up are Corey Connors, who I also think is a great course fit and has great history here, and Keegan Bradley. Keegan Bradley was pretty underwhelming last week, so I don't think a lot of people are going to play him. I kind of think of Keegan as a poor man's Corey Connors, so I just don't think he gets much attention, but I think he does a lot of the same things. And I think he's an interesting pivot off of some of the popular guys in the 9K range.
Connors has never lost strokes putting here. 12 rounds, 3 really good finishes, 3rd, 12th, and 11th for Corey Connors. Okay, Greg, there's a lot here. There's also, I think, a little bit of conversation between like course fit and course history. Brian Harman, I agree, is like should be great here. He had that 4th place finish in 2018, hasn't been good since in the last 4, which is kind of awkward. How do you want to start assessing this $9,000 range?
Yeah, Brian Harman definitely came to my mind. I'm not sure what to make of his record here. Has he been in? It's a little confusing to me. It's not so bad where I say, whoa, this place has freaked him out. It hasn't been great, but I love what I'm seeing from him coming in on approach. So I'm willing to play Brian Harman on the grounds of his form coming in more so than the course fit, even though I think it's good. I think he's playing really well and worthy of a play for sure. Corey Connors, it's a great point with him and the ball striking, but Keegan Bradley, I really liked last week, and he really struggled on the greens. And I think he's really improved the putting, although it didn't happen last week. So I'm willing to go back to the well there. His performance, that 34th last week, does not scare me away. I'm going to go back to the well. I'm still believing in Keegan. So he's definitely a good option for me, just like Sia. And last, a guy that we didn't mention, who I think could be a perfect fit here and could be a long shot winner here, would be Taylor Montgomery.
Oh, it's about time we named the best player in the field, Taylor Montgomery.
I mean, he's a guy I'm looking at thinking I would not be surprised if there was a 1 next to his name this time next week. I would not be surprised at all.
He's been building it, Greg.
He's building to it.
So let's lay the foundation of Taylor Montgomery. At the end of the Korn Ferry year, he plays awesome. 4 straight top 10 finishes, punches his ticket to the PGA Tour, starts off the Fortinet Championship this year, 3rd place. He has played 7 times this fall. 6 of them are top 15 finishes. I mentioned how good Tom Kim has been in the last 36 rounds. The only guy who has been better than Tom Kim strokes gained wise is Taylor Montgomery, and those two have a big gap to everybody else. He's $9,000. It's criminal.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, Greg, let me, because I want to ask you both something here, because one reason I agree with all of that. One reason I got off of Taylor Montgomery is he's not a very accurate driver. And I just wanted guys who were maybe a little bit more accurate, especially since what you brought up at the beginning of the show with the rough being a little bit, grown out a little bit. With that said, I want to ask, is this going to be a course where people are going to club down? I mean, the length certainly doesn't require drivers. Is that going to help the inaccurate drivers? I just don't want to throw myself off the scent from the driving accuracy standpoint. So Greg, what are you thinking about that?
Yeah, I think there are always exceptions. So you have to consider that Cam Smith won here and hit it, into the rough a lot, right? He wasn't extremely accurate. So there are some guys who have entered tournaments that have not been very accurate drivers of the golf ball who have had success here. So I always try to leave that, while I like accurate drivers of the ball, I don't rely solely on them. Ryan Palmer, he may have been pretty accurate, but there have been a number of players in the past who have not been extremely accurate who have done well here. And so I am willing to disregard it when you have the results piling up the way they are for Taylor Montgomery. If that makes sense.
It does. I have one more. Billy Horschel. Now, I know what everyone's saying. Rick, you're an idiot. He shot a 76 on Thursday. He was the only guy over par. He stinks. He finished 30th in a field of 39. Yes, he did. However, Greg, he gained 4.5 strokes to the field on the weekend. The only golfer who was better than Billy Horschel on the weekend, who's playing this event, was Tom Hoge. Tom Hoge finished 3rd. All right. So I could say Billy Horschel took 2 rounds to knock off some rust, played great, has finished 7th and 36th here in his last 2 years, and no one will play him.
I love the no one will play him. This is the interesting thing about Thursday rounds, right? If you call Billy Horschel, let's say this week, and he goes out in round 1 and shoots 61 and he's leading, you're a genius. And it doesn't matter where you finish.
Doesn't matter.
Rick, it was a great call by Rick. And the opposite is like the Sunday charge. It rarely do you remember the call. You know what I mean? So it's a very interesting case, and it can work in your favor like this, where, hey, he really turned it on. And the other thing is, we see this quite often with these two events. The players who play in Kapalua are way too harshly judged for what they did there at Waialae. And rust is a factor upon occasion. The style of golf course is wildly different. And sometimes that in itself can make all the difference.
You are so right about round 1 is all that matters.
It's not even, I mean, it could be Thursday morning, like just the Thursday morning wave.
Right. It's like, oh, he birdied 3 of his first 6 holes. You got him right.
Yeah, exactly.
Told you.
That was Seamus Power last week. Seamus Power got out to an early start. I was like, that's my long shot. Chalk it up. Green check mark. And it was like, I don't know when he finished, T27 or something. I don't know.
See?
Doesn't matter. Let's continue down the board here. We'll get to the 8s. There's still a lot of really good players. There's still a lot of players left. There's a lot of really good players left. But first, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our partners. And we're back. $8,000 range. There is a $300 gap from Taylor Montgomery to KH Lee, 87. Adam Scott and Cam Davis are next, couple of Aussies. Guy who played well last weekend, honestly, has been playing well for a while. JJ Spawn, Keith Mitchell, Siwoo Kim, Christian Bezadenhout, Andrew Putnam, and Emiliano Grillo. So another kind of smallish range, Sia, before we get to the gargantuan 7s and the gargantuan 6s. So what do you want to do here in the 8s?
I'll point out a few guys. I mean, I do like KH Lee a little bit here, although his history isn't fantastic, but I think KH Lee has sort of become a better golfer at this point. We see that with his finishing positions as of late. Cameron Davis is a guy I like. I mean, we talk about Cameron Davis a lot on this show. Great recent form, great track record here specifically. I think we're in a range with Cameron Davis where there's some win equity still at 8,500. We haven't really seen him, so maybe ownership is just a little lower because he's been a little out of sight, out of mind. And speaking of that, I do think Siwoo Kim is going to be a guy that completely gets forgotten in this range. I don't really love him. I wouldn't play him in my quote double ups or cash games, but I mean, he's shown recently some hot stretches of great golf, and at 8,200, I think he's a sneaky play. The last guy I want to ask you guys about that I like quite a bit, and this approach play from Siwoo Kim, man, he can get hot. And again, the putter is a disaster. 5 out of the last 6, it's like a joke. But again, I mean, we just saw like Lucas Glover has putted well here. Like there are some Corey Connors. We talked about the laundry list of guys who have putt at least okay here. So I think Siwoo has my attention. Andrew Putnam approach. He's an accurate driver. Putter can get hot. Anybody on Andrew Putnam? Because he's catching my eye at 8,000.
Definitely improve. He's definitely an improved player.
Let me circle back on Putnam for a second before I forget. Yeah. This is why we need a range report. I need to know what putter Siwoo's using this week. Remember he went to the long putter, Greg, after this one, after the BMW, and he putted well at the President's Cup, used it in an Asian Tour event, putted well at the Shriners. Now it hasn't been as good lately, but I would like to know let's just put it out there. If anybody's there for a practice round in Honolulu, go see what putter Siwoo's using. I need to know if it's the broomstick or the traditional putter. And we'll see if we can crowdsource this.
Oh, a range report would be so useful, so valuable. For something just like that. Look, he's not going to get the attention that Justin Thomas does when he changes putters. It's just the way it is. But it can be really important in an event like this.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to stop your train of thought on Andrew Putnam. Were you going down that road or were you going somewhere else?
Yeah, I was going to answer to Sia. I mean, Andrew Putnam's recent form on the greens has been unbelievable. It's been phenomenal.
Insane.
That is absolutely fantastic. And his iron play has really improved too. So I'm in, especially on a golf course like this that's not overly long. Anybody who's having success with their approach play and their putting is a check mark for me. I'm in for it. And that's exactly what he's been doing. And all it does is raise the potential. The potential to have success when you can putt and you can hit your iron shots goes way up. It helps. He's coming second here before. He came in 27th last year. I don't mind Andrew Putnam at all.
Fourth best putter in this field over the last 50 rounds, Andrew Putnam, just splendid. And if I go back further than that, he probably moves up the list. There are a couple of kind of President's Cuppers here, Greg, in KH Lee, Adam Scott, Cam Davis, Siwoo, I guess.
Yep.
Bez played.
Yep. Bez played.
They shoved them all. They shoved them all in the same range.
Yeah. I'm not overly interested in Bez. We haven't seen him in a while.
Me neither.
Grillo, maybe a President's Cup snub, you could argue. Fine. I'm totally fine with him. I don't love the way I love Cam Davis. Yeah. He's really the guy here. And I'm not sure what you're going to get with ownership with him. And I will pivot to an Andrew Putnam if it's too high, or, skip this range entirely. But Cam Davis is the guy in this range. Mm-hmm. Phenomenal win equity. And probably more, well, that's probably not fair to say, but a ton of win equity. For anybody in the 8K range, he has at least as much win equity than anybody in the 8K range.
Worth noting, Cam Davis went back to Australia and continued to play. So after the CJ Cup, he played the Australian PGA Championship T7. Then he played the Australian Open T38. So he has been playing. I mean, it's been 5 weeks since then, but golf is played other places in the world.
Yeah, and a T38 at the Australian Open may not be a great week. It may not be a great week, but that's okay. It doesn't mean that it was a poor performance, and it was a long time ago. So if it was a win or a T30, it just means that he's playing. So that's a really good sign. But the other thing about Cam Davis that I find really interesting is, although he's long, and you've said before, Rick, Detroit Country Club of Detroit Golf Club is if there was a golf course that was made for Cam Davis, it was this.
It's like he designed it himself.
Yeah. Well, what I'm impressed with Cam Davis is how many different kinds of golf courses he has success on. And a lot of them are like more accuracy based kind of golf courses, like the 3M Open, the John Deere Classic, right? The Charles Schwab Challenge. These are not necessarily bombers' paradises the way Detroit is. And so I think he can have success on this kind of golf course as well.
Yeah, he is capable of being precise, and he's capable of getting hot, and it's all good stuff. A new tweet just came out. I want to reference it. You guys want to argue for a minute?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. So Jason Sobel just tweeted, and I guess they've been keeping track of the players who have played at the Century Tournament of Champions and then at the Sony Open. Okay. And we can talk about this. So here's the tweet. Let me get it in here. So last year, 20 players played both. The year before, 30. So it's basically somewhere between 20 and 30 every year. They've won 5 of the last 6 titles. They've accounted for 40% of the top 10s, despite just making up 16% of the field. And they made the cut 73% of the time. Sounds amazing, Sia, right?
Yes.
However, what would my concern be with something like this?
Well, the best players in the world are typically at the Century Tournament of Champions, so they're going to suck up all the win equity in any tournament they're in, let alone this one.
They're the best players, right? I mean, I'm sure there maybe is something to getting to Hawaii early, getting competitive rounds in. I just wish I knew how much, because these are great numbers.
Well, I mean, look at the pricing. Okay. 9 of the top 10 in this field played last week. 9 of the top 10 players.
Yeah.
Tom Kim, Sung Jae Im, Hideki Matsuyama, Jordan Spieth. Russell Henley's the only guy that didn't play last week. Right?
Yeah.
And it goes all the way down to Keegan Bradley. Everybody, I mean...
Yeah, everybody else played. And then you go down a little bit further, and like KH Lee played, Adam Scott played, JJ Spawn played. Yeah, so like I love this, Greg. And I get what this is saying. But if you took those same, it's basically like saying, what have the top 10 players in the field done in every field that they're in, right? Because like the top 10 players in this field all played last week.
So let's look at it this way. There are 20 players. They make up 40% of the top 10 just last year. Like this is the difficulty. How is this useful?
Right.
I don't understand how to apply it. I don't understand how to apply it. There you got 20 guys that played both. Well, a fifth of them finish in the top 10. Most of them make the cut, but 6 missed the cut. I don't know. It's a hard thing. I don't know what to do with it. If I'm a bettor, am I only going to bet a guy who played last week? Probably anyway.
just by accident.
Probably anyway. That's right.
Just because they are the best players. But it's interesting. There's no question.
Yeah, I do appreciate the compiling the data.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always interested too in, like we talked about Keegan Bradley and what he did last week, how it wasn't great. Well, what's that mean for this week? They're very different, but they're good players, and so they're very likely to play well.
Here's the secondary trivia question. 2020 was the only year in which the winner did not play, at least in the last 6. Who did not play the Century Tournament Champions? Who won this in 2020?
Cam Smith.
Correct.
Right?
That is correct. Yes. Do you
I
remember?
was looking at past winners to like before the show.
All right, hold on. I can give you a harder one. So Cam Smith, he actually won it in a playoff. Oh, I remember this. Who did he beat in the playoff?
Wasn't it Brendan Steele and
Yeah.
Ryan Palmer? Ryan Palmer didn't make the playoff. He hit it out of bounds.
He remember he took like 3 wood on 18 and hit it
from
out of the
bunker.
stadium.
Yeah,
That's
and
right.
they never found it.
They never found it. Over the grandstand.
Yes, I remember. That was not the playoff, though. That was on 18. He should have gotten into the playoff.
He didn't know at the time what he needed.
Right.
I'm pretty sure I had a Ryan Palmer bet, which is why I remember this.
Yes.
But
That was a crazy finish.
He only needed like birdie or something. The scoreboard hadn't updated that 11 under was going to get you into the playoff. And he took on a risk taking fairway wood out of the bunker and hit a homer.
Yep. And Brendan Steele also hit it miles left, the opposite way. Yes. And he ended up taking a drop because of Grant. He hit it like on the other side of the grandstand, but there was a golf course over there.
Right.
It
was a very
crazy.
Wet, it was very wet and sloppy. Remember?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. That's your flashback to the 2020 version of this event. Where are we at? The 7Ks, $7,000 range. Lots of them, and lots of like our guys. See ya. Starts with Denny McCarthy, Matt Kuchar, Alex Smalley, Harris English, goes all the way down to Ches Reavie, Robbie Shelton, that man Lucas Glover. Let's chat about a guy or two, and we'll just keep going back and forth until we're done.
Yeah, Alex Smalley has my interest. I mean, you guys talked about, who was it? Taylor Montgomery in the finishing positions, just finding a way to get it done. His finishing positions have been very strong, 11th or better over the last 3. And we saw some really hot ball striking stretches from him last summer where he gained 6, 8, and 8 strokes ball striking in three of four tournaments. So the putter up and down, the wedge play a little dicey. So that's why I'm just a little hesitant on Alex Smalley, but I do like him. I like his upside quite a bit. Will Gordon, this is a guy that I've just kind of been on, and I refuse to get off the train at this point. I think he definitely checks some boxes. Accurate driver, gained ball striking 8 out of the last 9 measured events. Putter is a big question, but I think we're willing to overlook bad putters here. A couple other ones. I'll give you 2. We already talked about Lucas Glover. He's got a good history here and actually gained putting, and he gained an insane amount of strokes on approach. I think it was like close to 10 strokes on approach last year. But the other 2 guys I want to mention, Adam Svensson, coming off a really bad tournament last week. I think he finished second to last. I mean, even if you don't count Xander, I think he finished 37th, I believe. So he's coming off a bad week, but he was 7th here last year, and I definitely think this is a much better course fit for him. The wedge game is also very good. I think this really is like a perfect setup for Adam Svensson to bounce back. Other guy. Oh, go ahead.
He lost 8.5 strokes putting last week. If you lose 8.5 strokes putting at Waialae, you should check to see if your putter's crooked and your name is Keith Mitchell, because that is like the only possible way you could lose 8.5 strokes putting at Waialae.
Do you have to have both, or could you just be Keith Mitchell or have a bent putter?
You have to have both. Keith Mitchell alone, he'd be fine, but you gotta have both.
He's got 4 or 5 days to shake this off and get the putter to. And again, you can get hot with the putter here if you're terrible. And Adam Svensson, I think, is in a nice spot here. The only other guy to mention for me at 7,200. I did think about guys like Aaron Rye as well, but the only other guy, Russell Knox, I just think another really good course fit, has been really hot on approach and with the putter. I just think I don't want to say underpriced. He's still Russell Knox, but he probably is underpriced. He probably should be at like the Alex Smalley or 7,700 range. So I like Russell Knox quite a bit.
I was trying to figure out what the worst putting performance we've ever seen at Waialae is. Let's find out. Okay.
I still, while you're looking, Rick, I love the line Sia said there. You can get hot at Waialae if you're terrible.
If you're good, no chance. So dating back to 2008, so that's 14 years of this. There's only been 3 putting performances of 8.5 strokes in the negative or worse. So I think it's pretty safe Svensson won't do it. Nicholas Thompson did it in 2010. Lost 8.69. Roland Thatcher did it in 2012. Lost 8.8. This one's a little surprising. Jeff Ogilvy lost 10.3 in 2015 at the Sony Open.
Wow.
That's surprising.
It really makes me uncomfortable looking at that. Just seeing all that, the column of deep red is just, it's unnerving to me.
All right, I'll flip it around. We'll do the best putting performance.
That's better.
Russell Henley, 2013, 12.2. Andrew Putnam, you think he likes these greens? 10.8 in 2019. Wow.
No surprise to see Brian Gay on that list.
How about this? Roland Thatcher.
Wow, there he is.
Has like the 9th best putting performance ever.
Okay.
And what was that? The 3rd worst? The 2nd worst. So he's lost 8.8 in 2012. And the year so he had one of the best putting performances ever in 2011. And then the next week the next year had one of the worst ever.
Wow. That's wild. What an up and down. Wow.
Golf is sick.
All right. I'm going to start naming some players.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. First and foremost, I'm very interested in Harris English. I've been watching this for a while now, and I was on him in Mayakoba and Houston and the RSM, and it just hasn't quite done anything too special yet. But I feel like at this event, on this golf course, it's a really good course fit. And I like what I've seen with this slight little uptick in the last 2 events, gaining strokes off the tee. I like that he's made a bunch of cuts in a row. I think it's 6 of his last 7. I counted earlier. And I think that things are trending in the right direction from a guy trying to get right after injury. I just feel like it's going to happen. And I feel like he's a little bit underpriced. So I'm a big fan of Harris English.
It does seem like he's getting healthier, getting more sharp all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, better and better and better. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him contending at all this week. The other guy, like you mentioned, Rick, this is kind of the our guy section. Hayden Buckley.
Yeah, he's our guy.
He is definitely our guy. And at 7,600, I think it's a really nice value on him. I love what I've seen off the tee and with the putting. I absolutely love it. And he has had the potential in the past to get really, really dark green with the iron play, if you know what I mean.
I do.
And right now it's just kind of even, kind of level recently. And we haven't seen him since, of course, the RSM. So there's been a lot of time in between. But I am buying the talent of Hayden Buckley in 2023. And I think he's going to get off to a great start this year.
Yeah, he does a lot of this. I mean, he makes a ton of cuts, has a lot. I mean, piles up a lot of top 25s. We're just kind of waiting for that big old breakthrough on Hayden Buckley. Trying to think about some of these other guys here. Steele has the good history. Ben Griffin had a great fall. Grayson Sigg had a great fall.
Webb has great history.
Yeah, but he's been. What would you do? Like, what would you do with Webb?
I'd play Webb.
Are we past the blindly? Like, Webb has Webb courses.
Yes,
but Webb's form is about as bad as it's ever been.
Yes, it definitely is. But because we had the break,
yeah,
I would buy in now because he hasn't played since the RSM.
Yeah, I think that would be the argument. And the course fit is there, and we've had the break, and he's still Webb Simpson. We've seen him do it. We just haven't seen him do it in a while. Although I suppose back in the summer, I mean, we definitely saw some pretty solid flashes from Webb Simpson.
He's just so good. I understand the concern, Rick, and I wouldn't say you should be a buyer on it, but if there's ever a time, I like it after the break.
Yeah, I agree with that.
To kind of disregard that form for Webb Simpson because he's proven it before, and I'm buying that form is the anomaly. Anyway, I'll stop.
Anybody else in the sevens?
Yeah, another guy, this is interesting. And I think it kind of throws off the, be accurate thing off the tee, because I don't think Patton Kizzire is super accurate, but he's a scorer, and that's what we're looking for here, right? It should be easy given decent weather. And his finishing positions here have been really, really good. So again, the form doesn't tell us much in terms of wanting to play the guy, but if the history is good, maybe this is just a comfortable spot for him.
Coming in off of, it's actually, yeah. So he finished T10. Finished T10 at Mayakoba. I mean, his last two were fine. Finished T10 at Mayakoba, finished T35 at the RSM Classic. He gained strokes in both of them, 12.5 in total. The stretch before that was not good, but I was actually expecting it as Sia was building it up for it to be worse. So that's okay.
And he's won here, tied 7th 2 years ago, tied 13th.
And we know he can get red hot. I mean, he's the type of guy that can just rattle off birdies at a moment's notice.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Okay.
Steven Yeager is a guy I'm a fan of. Am I playing him this week? Probably not.
The sixes. Oh, this will be fun. Adam Long, Joseph Bramlett, Kazuki Higa, amongst others, at the top of the board. The min price golfers. Friend of the pod, Brent Grant, Carson Young, Nico Echevarria, the short game chef, Parker McLaughlin, Tano Goya, amongst others.
We can see Kyle Stanley at 6,100.
Yeah, he just avoided the min price, 6,100 for Kyle Stanley. Greg, where do you want to start here?
I want to start with my favorite 6-play golfer.
Okay.
He's at 6,700. His name is Kevin Yu.
Yeah.
We've talked about him at length on this. And he kind of feels like a forgotten guy. I think. And look, he hasn't done anything to warrant like Tom Kim kind of status. So I'm not saying that, but I like what he's done recently, and what he's done with the ball striking in the early portion of the start of his PGA Tour career is elite, and the college pedigree is elite. And I think it's just a matter of time before you start seeing these finishing positions match the talent level, which they're already close. They're already really close. So I'm definitely buying Kevin Yu anytime he's in the 6K range.
Yeah, we've got 4 measured starts on him since coming up and after getting his tour card. He's gained off the tee at basically 2 strokes or more in each of them. Does not even include Bermuda, where he finished 3rd. Assume he played well there off the tee. And then on approach, kind of similar story, at least a stroke on approach in 3 of 4. Doesn't include Bermuda. Safe to assume he probably hit it pretty well there.
Yeah, and he hasn't putted very well.
Right. Yeah, he hasn't been good at all.
So team no putt could be pretty good. I got another guy, a similar kind of pedigree, not a similar pedigree, but a similar resume, if you will, and that would be Carl Yuan.
Yeah,
coming off the Corn Ferry Tour, I was very high on him as a PGA Tour rookie. The start was mediocre, mild, maybe poor, especially poor with the putting and short game. But I'm thinking maybe a team no putt kind of guy, team no putt kind of performance. I think these two guys have really high upside in this range.
Yeah, and there are a lot of question marks in the 6K range, Sia. So trying to pick out a couple of these dart throws might be worth it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I actually like Carl Yuan a little bit, and I've never played him before. I think this could be sort of to me, he's a breakout candidate in this 6K range. So I like that. Adam Schenk, we know he can get hot here and there. Ryan Armour, good course fit, good course history. It's not like, I mean, people will be on him a little bit, but it's the 6K range, so he's not going to be super popular. Sort of a dart throw, a guy that can absolutely, wow, this is pretty good. Is this the latest from Adam Schenk?
No, it's loading here in a second.
Oh, my bad.
It'll be right there.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, again, Adam Schenk, he can get hot on approach. This is vastly different than what we were just looking at. But no, I do, again, he's not really high on my list. Matthias Schmid, I think, is an interesting, just complete dart throw that will have no ownership whatsoever. It's another guy that can get, again, really hot on approach and with the putter. So I think he's at least a decent course fit. Chess as we bring him up. Putter hasn't been great. But does this have the European stuff on it, Rick?
Yeah, so not all of their events are, so the results are there, but not all of their events are like strokes gained events, obviously similar to like PGA Tour. So his last start was in December. He finished 4th at the South African Open Championship. You get two of them there, Open and Championship. So he finished 4th, but that was not like a strokes gained event. So I don't have the breakdown there.
Right. And we see in July and August, Kazoo Open, Barbasol Championship, he gained a ton on approach. Again, that's a different field a little bit here, but and gained a ton with the putter too. So I think he has at least the potential. A couple of the guys that I like, Chesson Hadley, not super accurate off the tee, but when he gets hot with the putter and on approach, he's pretty solid. One or two long shots. Ryan Moore, we're starting to see some signs of life from Ryan Moore, and he's certainly a good course fit, one of the shorter hitters, of course. As we pull him up, I'll bring up two other names, Danny Lee, my guy, and Tyler Duncan, who, again, Tyler Duncan, I think, is a pretty good course fit here as well. But let's see what Ryan Moore's been up to.
There it is.
See, look at this approach game. It's signs of the old Ryan Moore from 4 years ago.
I'm a big fan of Ryan Moore, and I want to keep finding reasons to play him. And so I have played him probably like probably twice this past since like July. And he just doesn't make enough birdies.
Yeah, there's not a lot of upside there. I agree with you there.
But sometimes, Sia, to your point, I mean, remember we were talking about 2020, the winning score is 11 under in a playoff. So I don't know. It might not be a terrible thing this week.
Very winds, very weather dependent. What that score is going to be, obviously being on the coast there can get windy. We'll see what the weather report says as we get closer. Let me point out a couple of really deep flyers. One, the last time we saw Cole Hammer, he finished 5th at the RSM Classic.
I was looking at him.
The start before that, it was a T27. Now, Greg, he does not have, he has Corn Ferry status. He does not have PGA Tour status. So I know there's a lot of incentive for a lot of these guys, but if he's like T12 get yourself inside that top 10 gets you another start without having to use a sponsor's exemption.
Yeah, which is obviously a big deal. Now, I don't know if that is a good thing or a bad thing.
Right, because it could go wrong.
It could go wrong. I worry about, I want to let Cole mature a little bit more. If you feel like you've got 5 studs in your lineup and you're down in this range and you're, it's literally a dart throw in the 64, 65 and you have to be there, then I'm okay with it. But I'm still in a little bit of a wait and see with him personally.
Hazuki Higa, $6,900. Let me give you just a little global look at this. He won the Shinhan Donghai Open in September. That's an Asian Tour event. And he played the Zozo and he gained strokes. Not many, half a stroke, but he finished T36 in field of 78. So he beat a lot of your PGA Tour guys.
Yeah.
That's not much, but it's something.
I thought that golf was only played in the U.S.
You'd be wrong about that.
That was a great little trivia thing there, but I worry about these international flyers sometimes when they have success on smaller tours, and the reason I worry about it is I feel like it's very rare that there's a splash where you have some guys who play. It can happen.
The favorite of this event.
Yeah.
But
you're right.
Outside of Tom Kim, it basically doesn't happen.
But even Tom Kim, he developed a little bit on the PGA Tour in at least like 3 weeks, right?
This week last year he won an Asian Tour event.
Yes, but let's see. So Tom Kim comes in. I'm just trying. Where are we talking here? All right. So U.S. Open, remember he was at the U.S. Open and it wasn't until the Scottish Open when he came in third.
It was the Scottish. Yeah. The Scottish was like the big breakthrough. Then he came back. I think he finished like T27 in an event after that. Yeah. And then he started to get hot down the stretch.
Yeah.
Wins Wyndham and the rest is history.
So it's rare. That's my only point. And look, that's part of the reason why it's priced that way. But I digress.
It's rare. Anything or anyone else before we suspend all logic and reason for the rest of the show?
I feel like we're contractually obligated to mention that Austin Smotherman is only 6,300. And while it's been a bad stretch for him over the last, 3 or 4 tournaments, there was a hot stretch in there during the summer and the fall where Austin Smotherman was actually, he probably was because of the strokes gain narrative bump, but I think he's viable at 6,300.
He's in a song.
I was the Smotherman on the golf course yesterday, Greg. Little smother hooks all over the place.
Oh, really?
Not tough. Actually, it's just a couple. I played all right. Before you sign off, if you're not into the strokes gain narrative stuff, the fan one and done selection, that form, producer Troy told me he is going to put it in the description. It might be there right now. I don't know. Refresh the page. Try that. We'll tweet it out and you can get your vote in. Last week, the fans went with Justin Thomas?
JT, I believe. Yeah.
I think it was too. So we've got some ground to make up, fans. That form will be available to you. Yes, sir.
Greg, I was really disappointed in you yesterday during the round 4 recap because correct me if I'm wrong, but you had picked, like myself, Xander Schauffele, right? In the one and done?
Yes.
You should have been a little bit more upset as to what had happened because obviously if you and I had the information that we could change our pick after hearing on Wednesday that Xander Schauffele had a back injury, of course we would have done that. I'm just saying it's a little, I know I jinxed Xander Schauffele, but it's a little disheartening that you didn't throw a fit. I needed you to throw a fit on my behalf yesterday.
Yeah, I could have thrown a fit, but I knew the rules. And look, quite frankly,
no, you didn't. Nobody knew the rules. That's the whole point.
No, well, that's why we didn't write. That's why we didn't write in. And now we're going with the rules that we knew and understood. And so we're playing by the rules. And that is one, it's karma, and 2, and far more importantly than karma, and being the right way to handle it. We now have something to hold over Mark's head for the entire season. So this
That's
is already a season marked by an asterisk, and I want that.
Yeah, it's already a great success that there is a shadow already 1 week in, a shadow cast over Mark Immelman's performance this year.
Yeah, if he could win by 15 million.
Doesn't matter.
I literally, when I heard the Xander Schauffele news about his back, which was, I think, minutes after I had submitted my pick, or at least, maybe hours, I literally said to myself out loud in a room that was only occupied by me, I said, oh, that's so standard. And again, if I had been able to change my pick, I would have. That's all I'm saying.
Let's narrative it up. Strokes gained, narrative lineup. So Sia Nejad kind of collects these every week, and people send in whatever tickles their fancy, a lineup based on a theme, a sponsor. We're gonna start kicking out. I'm done with sponsors. We're gonna start kicking out sponsor lineups. Sponsor. I'm not giving any sponsors names anymore. I'm done with it.
You got to write one with the theme being 25 somehow.
Boy, tough scene. Tough scene. The model maniac. See, this will work. He's going with a tropical vacation for his strokes gained narrative lineup. So he's going to start very simply with Ryan Palmer.
It works.
That's perfect. You don't even have to change it. Ryan Palmer. Stuart Drink, a.k.a. Stuart Sink. This is me. Aaron Baddeley Sunburnt. I'm burning under these lights right now, quite honestly. Charlie Siegel Hoffman.
That is his nickname.
Oh,
Siegel
that is
Charlie's nickname.
Yes. Harris English Tourist. From overseas. Cheerio. And then Rory Sabatini. This just says as the resort manager because he wears that hat. He looks like he's on vacation.
That's good.
I like it. Simple.
This one confused me at first, and then I figured it out. Actually, Sia explained it to me 5 times. Then I figured it out. From Ryan at Fantasy Bunker says, Oahu is home to Pearl Harbor. I've been there. Which is also one of the highest grossing films of the 2000s. So he has opted for a blockbuster type lineup with Kevin Castatway. This is the one I didn't get. Brian Avatarman.
I get it.
I said, what's an Avit Harmon? And Sia was like, you're an idiot.
I get it.
The Kurt Locker Kitayama.
Okay.
Hurt Locker. Aaron, the Last Samurai.
Very good.
This one's hard to say. I'll try to get this one right. Sungjae Brokeback Mount Tim. Sungjae Im.
That's clever. You gotta be clever for that.
Mm-hmm.
This one's tough too. Ben Crouching Tiger Hidden Dragon. For Ben on. That's pretty good.
I'm impressed.
That's good. And if John Markowski thinks I'm singing this song, he's absolutely out of his mind if he thinks I'm singing this song. I can tell you that. So he said the first Sony Discman, again, I'm about to cancel sponsors here, came out in 1984. And the Billboard #4 song from that year was, I'm assuming this is Footloose. Is that
yes.
Is right? Okay.
Yep.
So here's what I'll do, John. We'll get you some follow because this is a great song. Go check out John Markowski on Twitter at John Markowski 0. He's got these lyrics here to the Footloose theme where he's kicking off his Sungjae shoes. And
so good.
It's really good. So you guys can get this stuck in your head, but I'm not sure I know the beat good enough to sing this one.
This is a great wedding song, by the way.
Yeah, it's J Markowski 0 as opposed to John. You said John, I think, but also John's a really gifted writer. So I actually encourage people to, and some like helpful stuff in there too on his Twitter page. I encourage everybody to follow John Markowski.
There you
good
go.
Dude, good writer.
J Markowski 0 on Twitter.
Not Jay, the letter J.
Yes. Everybody else is going to get they're searching everything but John's Twitter handle. So good. All right, gentlemen, anything else before we get out of here?
It's been fun.
We get a Friday sweat, full field cut event.
Cut Sweat, welcome back. Tuesday, mega preview pod. Get your fan one and done selections in by 5 p.m. Eastern. Link is in the description. We'll tweet it out. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, round by round recaps of the Sony Open and said Cut Sweat. We will talk about those. For now, producer Troy, thank you very much. All the hard work behind the scenes. See Nejad at See Nejad on Twitter. Greg DuCharme at The Real GFT. And John Markowski at J Markowski 0. You can find me at Rick Run Good. This has been The First Cut. We'll catch you next time.